to our session. And tonight, unlike other days where we've had like fun times and all, tonight we're talking about something very, very serious. We're talking about gender-based violence, and we're also talking about relationship dynamics. I've got wonderful people here with me tonight. They're experts in their field, and they're going to share some insights and knowledge with us so that we can be able to look at what it is that we can do to try and help our people, to help our families, our communities, to ensure that we don't really go into these problems ever again and we can be able to manage them. I'm with Kubas and Esther. They will introduce themselves as per the usual. Kubas, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, Matsaleng, thank you for inviting me to this. And thank you for talking about this important topic. I'm Kobus van der Merwe. I work with love. I work with relationships, how to help couples working with trouble in their relationships and creating a safe, connected environment so that they can be fully alive in connection. So I work with Imago relationship therapy and working with that now for the last 25 years.
Thank you. And Esther? Who are you and what do you do? You muted. You muted. Please unmute yourself.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'm Esther Maluleke. I'm very pleased to be here and thanks for inviting me, Matsileng. Like Kuobas, I work with relationships, but at a different level and in a different way. I'm a chief director in the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities. I hope people are aware of this department because wherever I go, if I say I work for this department, people have no clue. So it's very important that you know your government. So I'm the chief director and I'm responsible for a program called Governance Transformation, Justice and Security. That's where the whole program of gender-based violence is housed. So I'm pleased to be here so that I can continue to spread the word about the fight against gender-based violence. You know that we've got a strategic plan on gender-based violence, and I want to share partly as we go on. I hope this is not the only session. We will continue
Absolutely.
to chat so I can share what government is trying to do to fight the scourge. Thank you, Matsileng. Over to you.
Wow. So you see, you've been doing so much around gender-based violence, but especially with the events that have just happened recently, we can see that a lot still needs to be done. So the reason why I've got the two of you here is because one of you deals with the policies and the planning on how we can prevent this, how we can deal with gender-based violence. And then the other one deals with how do we look into relationships within families, within couples, to ensure that we can maybe reduce the violence, the conflicts, and help people understand each other. Because I believe that gender-based violence comes from individuals who are in a relationship, because usually it happens with couples. So we need to really look at how do we help couples to be able to try and reduce the amount of violence that gets perpetrated against women. So maybe we'll start with you, Esther, to tell us a bit about what is gender-based violence. We see it everywhere. What is gender-based violence?
Okay, I'll try to simplify it as much as possible. I wish we were in a workshop sitting physically to engage on this because it takes a very long time to actually unpack the concept. And for those in the room now who know what the concept is, please bear with me because we need to bring along those that don't understand this big word called gender-based violence. So I want to try and simplify it and break it into two. The concept is gender-based violence. So I want us to focus now on gender-based. What is gender? In other words, gender is defined in three ways. To understand what the concept means, and I'm not talking about gender as in the Oxford Dictionary. The simple definition of gender in the Oxford Dictionary means whether you are either female or male. But the technical use of the word gender means three things. First of all, that it has nothing to do with sex. Sex is physically how you look like. For instance, Matileng, when I look at you, I see a woman biologically.
Yes.
Anatomically, that's how you are made up. And when I look at Kuobas, he's a male. Anatomically, he's different from you. So that biological difference is called sex. It's a sex difference. But gender, what it means is three things. First of all, understand that it's not biological. It's what we call a social construct. In other words, we human beings constructed it ourselves. That's why it's called social construct. And I'll come back to that. The third definition, a part of the definition is that it has to do with relationships. And what do I mean by relationships? It's power relations. And that is based on what we call a patriarchal system. The belief that men have more power than women, that men need to, what is the word? To exercise their power, because that is accepted socially. That you are the head of the
that is
household.
probably something that
Exactly.
our society has perpetrated to
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, Matileng. And I want to, and that I think you need to underline is power relation. It has something to do with power relations between men and women. Now, moving to stopping, because I can go on, and I want to keep it this short and simple. What it means is, when we say gender is a social construct, it simply means that, Matileng, your biological makeup, what we call a woman, that you can't change. Yeah? Kuobas, you can't change how you look. But gender, because it's a social construct, we can change it. Simply means when society looked at Kuobas, they said, oh, you are built this way biologically. So we want to assign you certain roles. We want you to be head of the family. We want you to run the whole household, get a job, make sure that your wife and children eat and survive. And when I'm Matileng, you are the wife, you are the neck, you're not the head. So we want you to clean dishes, do the washing, take care of everybody else. So that's not biological. It's what we decided as society, looking at your biological makeup as a man and woman, that we assigned you those roles. So we believe that that can change, though our assignment of roles can change. But how we look biologically, that's what we can change. And going to conclusion, what it means, Kuobas, practically, is that if I'm a woman, I fall pregnant and bear a child, that you can't change, I can't change. That's how I am biologically. But Kuobas, once the baby is there, you can change that baby's nappies. being a man. So can you see where the roles now come in? You can be a father, feed the child, bath the child, etc., etc. That you can simply do with your two hands. And that's where you get the opportunity to bond with this baby. And that's where the whole concept of relationship starts. And maybe, Matilene, let me pause there. And I hope I have not confused people. And I've tried my best to
No, you,
simplify it as much as
yeah,
possible.
no, you have simplified it. So maybe let's come to
So
Kubas.
yes,
Okay. Yes.
maybe. Sorry, let me conclude, Matilene. Sorry, you asked what is gender-based violence. I was
Yes.
unpacking the concept of gender. Now, come take the part of violence. So it simply means that the violence that we see has to do with the way we have assigned roles to men and women. That is why men are more of perpetrators that perpetrate violence compared to women. So,
Mm.
this violence that we see of killing women and girl children is gender based. In other words, it's based on the roles that are assigned by society.
Yes.
That you need to exercise power as a man. For you to believe that you are a man, you need to show some kind of level of violence. And that's
Mm.
problematic. And
Yeah.
we'll come
I
back
think
to that. Let me
yes.
pause.
I think then it takes us to Kubas's role, because with you, Kubas, you deal with relationships. People come to you when they have conflict within the relationship. Please, can you just take us through the importance of having a couple that communicates, that listens, and respects each other? So maybe take us through that from what you do, Gobas.
Yes, thank you, Mitsling. Yeah, Esther, thank you for that lovely explanation. That uh, I also think that just working with gender violence is kind of a symptom of something bigger. Um, it's society that need to change, a way of thinking. I like the way how you put it. It's a social construct that need to change. If that social construct stay, um, we can have all the communication in the world, but inside that social construct, um, we kind of create a condition for violence. So part of what we sit with is that we sit with a vertical relationship. That there's one at the top and there's one at the bottom, and that can be clever and dumb, or rich and poor, and
Mm,
it can be male, female. But as long as that is there, you can have excellent communication. But if you communicate from top down, that's that that create the possibility for violence. So a big change that we just see in relationship work is to shift the vertical relationship to equality. Um,
mm,
and before, there's not absolute equality. Two valid people, male, female, male, male, female, female, or genders, two people, that's absolute equal, no matter who they are. We will sit with the problem of war and violence, and oppression. So that's part of a big part in this work is how to shift the social construct, but how to shift even the communication from top down to equality. Now, the problem with equality is that it's kind of a paradox that vertical communication or vertical relationships create peace, because I'm the top, you're at the bottom, and you have no say. That's peaceful in a way, until the one at the bottom get uncomfortable. But being equal is not peaceful. That will create tension. If you have two people that's valid, that have valid needs, valid voices, that's not a comfortable thing to live with. And we as humankind need to learn to to live with equality, but not as a harmonious thing, but to hold the tension of difference together, hearing each other, seeing each other as valid. Just in a normal relationship, one will want to raise the kids with more control, and one wants to raise the kids with more playfulness. One wants to spend more money, one wants to hold on to the money. One wants more friends, one wants to live more inside, one is more emotional, one is less emotional. Now, both are valid to have different perspectives about the world and reality and how to raise the kids and how to have sex and how to spend money. Both are valid. And the art of a good relationship, of an equal relationship, is that dialogue between those two different polarities. Then difference together in equal relationships become a co-creation, become a creative, alive place. So, yeah, to answer your question about communication, that what we teach couples first, before we talk about anything, is how to talk from a equal level and listen to equal level. Not to try to be right or wrong or be more clever or more committed or more emotional, more sensitive. I just see with me and my wife, we are married 29 years. And I'm working with relationships and I'm reading about relationships. So sometimes I see myself a little bit more informed about relationships than her. And Anita, on the other side, my wife, can see myself. Yes, I talk a lot about relationships, but I never act the kids. I give lectures and I talk a lot about that, but I'm not so loving like she is. But even that, if I just see me as more informed than her about love, or she see herself as more loving than me, the moment when we create that inequality, we are stuck in a power struggle. It, the one side of that is violence. The other side of that is just a power struggle, that we are not talking to each other, or there's tension in the home. But
Giving
if
up.
we giving up, even living parallel. But if we can start to hold each other, maybe I have the knowledge and maybe she have the heart, and together we can dialogue with each other, and I can learn to have a heart, not just talking about love, and she can learn from me about all the interesting theories about love. Maybe together we can be amazing parents, we can be amazing contribution to society. So that's what we teach couples, how to have a dialogue from equality, holding the tension together, the difference together, and move that towards something creative. And just imagine if society can be built up through couples that meet each other on equality, so that we can see each other as
Be-
equal and working together.
Absolutely. Because most of these problems come from couples. These problems come from couples who don't understand each other. So would you say, Kuobas, from the type of work that you do, that when couples have challenges and they start to listen to each other and they understand that they're not the same, they are different. And I think I like, there's something that you like to say about people being different, and the reason why they're together is because they're different.
Yes,
So would you say that it also contributes towards that, this violence where people think they have to be the same?
that's part of, to use Esther's word, I love that the social construct, there's so many just social construct about sex and about gender and about so many things, even about love. What is love? Um, my heart kind of stop when I hear people say love is to give yourself up and to give up all your needs just for the sake of love. Why on earth will that be love, to be in a marriage where you need to suppress who you are and yeah, experience violence? That's not love. Uh, so
Mm.
so so part of who you will attract in a relationship is that you will attract someone that is not you. Especially in romantic relationships. Quiet people never fall in love with another quiet person. A quiet person fall in love with a very talkative person. An unemotional person never fall in love with another unemotional person. They fall in love with a very emotional person. And there's a good reason. Maybe that's another topic, but there's a whole agenda behind why we will fall in love with our difference. But that difference is important why we are together. That difference is not something to kill. That is not something to make war with. That's not something to fight. That is something to love. And again, if I can make it simple, um, I love to think and analyze things. But in a way, Anita is right. I don't feel things so much that they're supposed to, especially if you talk about something like love. You need to have a good heart. She have a very good heart. She can cry about many things. She can laugh about many things. So we are different. I'm thinking she's feeling it's different. And it can easily become that difference for me looks kind of slow or dumb or not intelligent or over emotional and even dangerous. And if I suppress that emotionality of Anita because I'm cognitive, I'm making myself poor. I'm taking away something from her. I take something away from me. I'm taking something away from my kids. I make life smaller. I need to love that over emotionality, that tears in that eyes, that laughter, that uh, yeah, all
That
of that.
yeah, that's why they say it's your
Um,
other half. That's why
yeah,
they
she's not
call
my
your
other.
partner your other half.
Yes, that's a good idea, but she's not my other half. I need to get my own heart, and she need to get her own mind. But the big thing is,
Yes.
we need to see the otherness of the other and love that, and not to try the otherness, the meanness. I mustn't make Anita like me, and Anita mustn't try to make me like her, because that's where couples get stuck. They think there's something wrong with the difference, and we need to get rid of the difference, and we need to become the same. So we keep on criticizing each other, getting irritated with each other because you are different. And the art is not to move the difference in a power struggle, but to
Mm.
dialogue the difference into something creative.
Mm. Sure. That's so that's so profound. Esther, now if we look at this from what Kuabas is saying, do you think that from your part, as the policymakers, do you think that if we could apply some of the things that Kuabas is talking about, because you've done a lot of research, you've got a lot of data in your hands that tells you what happens and how many incidences happen, do you think that it could help to have couples literally follow certain things and understand each other to reduce the conflict, because it is the conflict that leads them to violence, and it is them not understanding, which is also something that I like that Kuba said. It's them understand. They have to understand that it's okay to be different, because then they bring something else into the relationship. What is it that people need to know, that people can take away to try and not have too much expectations, unrealistic expectations of their partners? What is it that we can do to try and reduce that, to reduce this sketch that we have today? You muted, Esther.
Thank you for that question. And I wanted to really take it where Kuobas left it. And I want to answer your question by starting to deal with difference and sameness and what it means from a feminist and a gender perspective. When we speak about equality between men and women, Kuobas is right. We're not looking for sameness. And that is where the problem is. That when we speak about women's empowerment, people immediately what comes to mind is, oh, you want to behave or be like men. No, women don't want to be like men. When we talk about equality, we're talking about acceptance of that difference. And what is this difference that we're talking about? And maybe let me hold it just there a little bit and take a step back. Why we are different? We need to answer that question first. It's because of the way we are socialized. Remember my explanation of what gender is? So once you have a boy and a girl in the household, your children, you say you as a boy, it's okay, you can play in the street, you can fiddle with cars because of your physical makeup.
Mm.
You can, carry heavy things because you've got muscles. And then we say to a girl, oh, you look pretty like Barbie. You should be wearing pink. You should be showing emotion. And by the way, we're also saying to Kuobas, when you're hurt, don't cry.
Don't
Tigers
cry.
don't cry. Men don't cry.
Mm.
So when we do that, Matsileng, especially to male or boy children, we are literally socializing them and asking them to be inhuman. Please underline that. You're saying you shouldn't cry when you are hurt, you fall, Kuobas. Remember, you're a boy. Don't cry. We are dehumanizing Kuobas. Immediately, Kuobas learns to suppress his emotions. If he's hurt, he can't cry. He's not supposed to show it. He must be macho. You know what we say, macho. He must be strong. But when a little girl falls or bends or is hurt, we say, oh, no, sorry. We encourage a girl child to show emotion.
So it's like it's a built-in thing from child.
Exactly. And can you see the consequences? When in relationships, we encounter problems, as we should. It's natural. We go through the similar stresses. Take, for instance, a Kuobas who's unemployed, doesn't work anymore. They have bottled up anger and frustration. What did we teach them? Not to show emotion. When they're angry and frustrated, they keep it in. The only way they take it out is to look for this vulnerable wife, girl that has been taught to show emotion. And that's how they take it out. Can you see? Imagine
I think we're losing you a bit there, Esther. Hello?
and it bursts out.
Okay, you're back now. Yeah, we had lost you a bit there. Okay, Kuobas, I think whilst she's still having a connectivity problem, would you want to take it up from there?
Yes.
And then Esther, you can just join us back. But Kuobas, I think I would like you to just touch on what she was saying and taking it back to relationships and us as individuals and what we bring into the relationship. Because each of us are individuals. We've had our experiences, like she was explaining, that we were molded, we were taught not to feel certain things. We were taught how to behave, how to.
Can you hear me,
look at
Matsileng?
life. Oh, yeah, we can hear you now. Oh, she's back, Kuobas. So
Yes.
I'll go back
Good,
to her.
good.
Okay. Okay.
So, Matsileng, what it means is the way we behave, and as men and women in adulthood, it's based on how we are raised. Exactly the way I've explained. And the biggest challenge now we have, it's unlearning what we've always known and known to be truth. Are you with me? Which is very difficult. So it means we must unlearn that which we've learned. We must first, as women, probably understand that men are human beings. They've got feelings like all of us. They are allowed to feel. Men also must understand, because, the problem with socialization is how it teaches men to treat women like big children, like human beings that can't think, like human beings that need to shush when they speak, the same way, exactly the way we are socialized. And when we don't do that in relationships as adults, it becomes very threatening.
Mm.
And because men can't express it in words the same way that girls or women have been taught to do, they bottle it up.
Mm.
The only language they understand is being physical and violent when they can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
So we need to really navigate and begin to negotiate so that we can understand that difference. Can you see the difference that I've just explained? We can try very hard to bring each other closer together through communication, but also starting by understanding why we behave the way we do.
We
Let
do.
me pause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just going to go to Kuobas and then we'll look at some of the questions that we have online. But Kuobas, what I would like you to talk about is, like we're talking about the difference and sameness and all of that. You know how you explain with when we are children, the things that we go through as children. So is it necessarily that it could be just males that become violent at a later stage in their lives? Or are there other things that we go through as both males and females when we are brought up by our parents that determine the type of partner that we will attract, as well as the types of things that we will bottle up if we are bottling things up, or the things that we'll just throw out if we are that type of person? What is it necessarily like males, or is it because it becomes that much more difficult for males to control this because of societal conditioning? What would you say about that?
Well, that's a big question, but so no, I don't think just males or females. It's all of us, and in a sense that all of us have experienced pain in childhood, um, and when we experience pain in childhood, for us to survive, we need to give up some parts of who we are and about life. So if you have a dad that's drunk all the time, you can't have a voice. If you have a voice, you will experience pain. So you need to give up your voice. Or if there's a mum that's depressed, you can't have too much needs or show too much vulnerability. So, and it happened with all of us, not just some people, men, women, all people. We experience pain. We don't live in a perfect world. And what we just see, what's the agenda of love, is that whatever we gave up to survive, we want to get it back. There's an agenda in love to get full aliveness back again. So let's say if you give up to be sensitive and to be playful, what happens when you fall in love is that you don't just fall in love with any person, you fall in love with that lost part. You fall in love with a person that is playful and that is emotional or sensitive. But if you are very much serious, you will fall in love with a person that's so playful, they're kind of childish. If you are so um, uh, unemotional, you will fall in love with a very emotional person. So the more wounded we are, the more we will attract a other polarity of that difference, and that creates a lot of tension. Now, the big thing just behind something like violence is, why will we kill someone that we love? Why will we hit someone that we love? And and it's not just on that kind of extreme base, but for all of us in relationships. Sorry, I hope someone will just help my dog. Um, um, that that
Maybe your dog is answering to some of your questions.
yes, yes. Um, that we don't need to go to that extreme. Um, just being irritated of each other, just ignoring each other, not talking to each other for days. That's also part of that. So how we lose life. A child don't just get up one morning, a little girl, and make a decision. I'm going to stop to think because my brain is too much. Or a little boy don't just wake up one morning and think crying is just irritating. I'm going to stop to cry. It's at least 13,000 incidents of shame and fear and pain before a child move from talkative to quiet, from sensitive to insensitive. What is more is that history of losing life that sometimes a child starts to think, if I get tears in my eyes, there must be something wrong with me. And then you start to hate that tears in yourself, and you think, I hate myself and I hate my tears. Something's wrong with me because my parents don't like me, or I'm not manly, or I'm not a woman, or I'm not a human, or I'm not a child, I'm not lovable. But you can't live with that self hate. If you live with self hate, you will commit suicide. So to protect yourself, you project that self hate. So you start to hate it in other people. So I don't hate my tears, I hate your tears. So if we put it all together, if I don't have a capacity to cry or to use my heart, I will fall in love with someone that can cry. But because I hate it in me, I will project it on you. And that's how violence starts. So the thing that we really need to get to is not just communication. The deepest level of real transformation is if we can start to love what we hate in the other.
Mm.
Instead of killing that, instead of hating that, instead of hitting that, instead of being violent to that, you need to have the capacity to love it there. If I can love it in the other, I can own it in me, and then we can become. I love what Esther have said. Then we can become human again, not macho or dumb or unimportant or without needs. So there's a big, big secret and a big gift if we can overcome violence and replace it with love, but not just kind of a moralistic thing, let's love everyone. There's a very wise process, but a very difficult process to love what you hate in the other and replace the love with hate so they can love it in me, so that all of us can become humans again.
So, sure, this is so profound. So, are you finding that when you see couples, is it usually both of them, or is it commonly women that would come for help? Because what I've also seen, like right now, I'm sure Esther, you can also agree that the violence that we see, the common violence that we see, is the violence against women, because of the power that men have. So, would you say that a lot of men would initiate coming for, to see you for their problems, for their conflict in the relationship, or is it balance, or is it just women, or is it just men?
Thanks, Matsileng, for that
Thank you.
question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks for that question. I think I'm going to respond to that question looking at the South African context because it matters. It's very important to understand the violence that we see. I think as a country, historically, we've experienced what we call institutionalized violence. I don't need to remind people about the history of. So the apartheid government used violence to solve social problems and political problems. So it became institutionalized. In other words, when Black people were marching, how did the apartheid government respond? It meted out violence, going as far as killing people. So it's institutionalized. I always say to people when I talk about the work that we do and try to make people understand that we are in a serious crisis, is because we can't ignore that history. I hear people now talking today about a violent democracy. Can you see? The violence runs through in society. When there's no service delivery, communities don't have water. Basic thing that indeed government needs to deliver on and make sure that at least people, how do they resolve the problem? Through violence. So we have a strong history of violence. When you drive on the road, I'm just giving examples. You have taxi violence. They kill each other, they for the routes, they bully people, drivers on the road. We are a society that solves problems through violence. And can you see what that does? It then penetrates in every unit of society, including the home. We don't understand any language of problem solving and communication, except these are two extremes. You're either peaceful or you're extremely violent. So, our challenge as government, especially on gender-based violence, it's re-socializing people to understand that there are other different ways of resolving problems. But remember, I spoke about socialization. We encourage boys to fight in the street when they are challenged, but girls to run away when they are threatened. Are you with me? So all of us learn that the only way, and I always marvel at people, when I drive to work and I listen to the radio and I hear parents challenging government about the policy of corporal punishment in schools.
Yes.
It amazes me because you have 80% of callers saying government can't tell us how we should raise our children. And maybe government is not explaining it in so many ways to say, actually, we want you to be re-socialized. We want, because the minute in a home when a child is not, when 5-year-olds, we've learned with child development that a child explores. When you clean in the house, they'll try and open a cupboard, take something. It's exploration. All they're trying to do is to understand their environment. But as a parent, what do? You hit them. You say, no, you can't do that. That action that you think it's small, that's the beginning. Teaching a child that, when I disagree with you,
Violence. Which is what
make you on the palm. Yes. And that is why we behave in the way we do. So we want to re-socialize, to say, actually,
Okay, we're losing you a little bit again there. Kubas will start to talk and then she'll come back. But I think she's touching on something that is so important about exploration, and I'm sure it falls into those phases of attachment and all of that. And when a child has been told so many times that, no, you can't do this, no, you can't touch that, they end up giving up on that. But later in life, they will want to experience that, and they will attract a partner that will help them to experience it.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah. So sorry, I'll give over to
I told you,
Kobas. I think I've got.
No, I was saying are you back? Are you back?
Problem.
Are you back? Okay, continue. Yes. Hi, Esther. Okay, let's get Kobas to speak, and then you'll come after him. So Kobas, maybe you can come.
So my network is very unstable. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's okay. Maybe Kobas, do you want to come in there so that we?
Yeah, well, I see one of the questions there is corporal punishment wrong? that the thing is that um, a child need also boundaries, but there is ways without violence to say yes and to say no and to be attuned. It's it's kind of a paradox again to be in a vertical relationship that I'm at the top and you at the bottom. That create peace. Then you need to listen to me. Now that's kind of that's easy. But that's not alive. That is not really safe because the one at the bottom will get reactive, and somewhere they will try to get to the top, and that become the power struggle,
And
and
that will backfire. Yeah.
we will never end that war. If we want to be a society where we can hold each other, a relationship where we can be together, where we can be all fully alive, we need to change that from top to bottom to equal. And there is ways on an equal level, even from a parent to a child, to be on an equal level, to hold each other in a place that I respect you. I love what Esther have said, like children, you can look at one child from this perspective and you see what a naughty child that needs to behave. Or you can look with different eyes and rather be attuned to this child, much harder work to be attuned to a child, holding them in the exploration of aliveness, holding them because it's not exploration to hang out of a car driving 120 kilometers per hour and think you're busy exploring
Yes.
something. That's dangerous. There you need to say, no, come back in the car. But there's ways of doing that in a way that respect the child. Um, Creating boundaries. Yes, we need boundaries. But we can still be equal and we can still hold life. The problem is if you tell that child you are bad, you're naughty, I can't even look at you because you're so bad. You integrate that badness, that self-hate, and that will get projected in relationships, in parenting, in society, in politics. If we can rather integrate in our children different ways of respect and dialogue, teach them how to handle difference in a healthy way, in an equal way, it's so much more healthier. And to come back, a child busy exploring is beautiful. That's no way that that can be naughty. What is important, they mustn't get hurt. They can't try the hot plate. They can't try the electric plug. They need that no, but that energy, that exploration, that's beautiful. Honor life and protect each other together at the same time. That's where we need to get.
Okay, back to you,
Martin,
Esther.
yeah,
Yes.
I'm tempted to come back to the question. And thanks for
Yes.
whoever asked the question. It's corporal punishment wrong? It's an interesting question. It's a yes and no. And why is it a yes? Parents are not the same. People are not the same. If you're able to control it and it ends with a smack, and I think Kobus is saying something very, very important that should qualify what I said before, that in any relationship, whether it's a mother, parent, child relationship or partner relationship, there should be boundaries. You know, you should know what your limit is in terms of doing certain things. If you as a parent, you'll be able to say no to a child when they touch a hot plate and you smack their hand, so that you can immediately communicate that that's danger. I wouldn't call that a problem. But the problem with society is going to extremes. It starts with that slap on the wrist and it escalates to shooting somebody at some point when you are angry. And I think that's where the problem gets, when it gets to extremes. So the only best way is for us to discourage it, But I think you can be taken to jail as a parent if you smack a child on the wrist. No, you can't. It's not bad. And you have a responsibility anyway as a parent to put those boundaries. But we are learning that talking to children and making them understand that if you touch a hot stove is dangerous. All they want you to do is to explain it, and explain it in their language in a simple way that they'll understand. And you will see, you will not have to use your hand or a stick at any point.
Yeah.
That's how kids are
Yeah.
socialized, raised, etc. But
As
we need to discourage violence as much as possible. Thank you.
yeah, Esther, I actually wanted to say to you, to ask you. So there are a lot of parents who will not talk to a child and explain the consequences of doing something. They will just smack and shout and even fist the child. But we also recognize that those parents have been raised by their parents who probably treated them
It's the
that
only
way.
language, yes. The only
So that's
language
the
they
only way that they know how to
to
discipline.
discipline.
And
Yes.
like you mentioned earlier on, they take it out on the weaker person, which is a child. And in today's days, because these young people can see that there are many other options, they also now adopt ways that will make them to survive. But it doesn't really get rid of what they experienced at home. So how do we now go back? Where do we start? How do we go back? Who do we start with? Grandparents that are still alive? Do we go to ancestors and talk to them? Where do we start? Because the problem is not with the current people that are doing wrong. The problem stems from way back. And
Yes.
you also
Older
mentioned that
generation. Older
yeah,
generation.
we have been so socialized that violence and shouting and all of that makes things right. But we know that it helps only momentarily, but it has so much impact in the long run. So where do we start? Who of us, with your work, okay, Esther wants to say something, but where do we start?
No. Let me allow Quibus to answer that first. It's fine.
Well, for me, the starting point is definitely if we can change the family and if we can change marriage, we can start changing the next generation. And if we change the next generation, we change society and we can change the country and we can change the world. So the practical point for me is to start with teaching new relationships. But probably more true or more realistic is that we need together government, marriage therapists, parents, schools, all of us need to recreate a new, to use Esther's word, a new social construct. And in a way, we need to be soft on ourselves as a humankind. We are busy as a humankind moving from one way of thinking into a different way of thinking. It's showing in all kinds of levels. It's showing in economics, it's showing in politics, it's showing in engineering, that we are moving away from a Newtonian thinking of things are separate and isolated and they are permanently like that, like an atom, to something that is dynamic, that is co-creating together. We are busy seeing the world differently because we discover the world. So in a way, we need to be a little bit soft on ourselves, not to try to find who is wrong here, but working together in changing the social construct. And in another way, uh, it's urgent because it creates war, it creates pain. We can't raise another generation with this old way of thinking of oppression or lower realities. It is urgent.
And the sad part is that the young people today, the younger ones, the little ones, are watching these ones killing other, these 20-something-year-olds. And to them, it's planting a seed that, okay, if I'm not happy with something, I'm sure I can do that. So I like what you're saying, that, we have to be all kind and soft with each other. But we know that a lot of people will not even recognize or acknowledge that they have a problem. So how do we help them to say, okay, I think I have a problem. I think I need help. Because if I don't get the help, I'm going to be the perpetuator of this violence against innocent children and women. And then maybe, Esther, what you could address is the fact that we see even in the workplace where we have bullies and would you say that it's people that are just perpetuating violence in every space where they go? Or are they bullies at work because at home they're being bullied? What would you say, about that? Because we know that bullies are actually probably the weakest, because they're not able to handle their problems and they take it out on other people.
Marceline, to answer your question simply, as I explained the context of South Africa, and that's our biggest challenge as government, is that violence is everywhere. It's in the home. I always say that. It's in the street. It's at school. It's in the workplace in the form of sexual harassment. It's in parliament. You've seen those debates, those violent. So it's institutionalized. What do I mean? Let me put it simply by institutionalization. What I mean by institutionalization is that it's normalized. It's normal. When somebody behaves in a violent way, we don't get shocked anymore. That's how things are.
We actually laugh.
We laugh and stand by as observers.
And we record it and we share it.
Exactly. And laugh. In extreme situations, we'll even laugh about that. That's problematic. Extremely problematic. So to go back to your question of what do we do? There are no easy answers. First of all, we need to understand that, and this is what in our strategy on how we fight gender-based violence, we've come to a conclusion that it's a whole society problem. So it can't be government alone. Government is limited in how it responds to this problem. In what sense? Yes, it has a huge responsibility. Don't get me wrong. Government needs to act quickly and get its act together to try and help resolve this problem. But there is a limit in how far it can go. For instance, if someone is raped or violated in whatever way, physically, emotionally, economically, by the way, there's an economic violence where a father will withdraw paying fees or buying food in the home. That's economic abuse. Government can get into the private space of people because violence happens in private spaces. Yes,
that's where it starts.
But no, that's where it starts. So by the time government intervenes, it's too late. Government will only get to know of the problem when a person is raped, when a person is physically beaten, and they go to the police and report it. That's too late for me because I don't want that behavior to happen in the first place. So that's why I say government comes after the fact. So when people say, oh, what is government doing? They must also understand that by the time government comes in, it's too late. And that is why the system is clogged with cases.
So there are ways.
What as a society, we need to stop it. What it means is at home, how we talk and communicate with each other. That's where it starts, becomes important.
Yes.
When we see our neighbor beaten, violated, we don't look away. We take it personal. We say, oh, this could happen to me. I need to do something about it. When we see men, by the way, violence, when another man kills another man, that's gender-based violence. Do you hear what I'm saying? It's gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is not violence against women. There's violence against women and children. There's gender-based violence. There's a difference. Violence against women, it's obvious. It's self-explanatory. It's violence that is meted out towards women and children.
Yes.
Problem. But gender-based violence, remember the roles, gender? Men fighting men because they have to be macho and prove their prowess. That's gender-based violence. Shouldn't happen. So we need to call out people. But as society structurally, because this problem is embedded in institutions, and for instance, we are saying as government, we're looking at programs that we can start having in schools of resocialization. You know, there's a lot of bullying in schools. There are programs that are evidence-based. In other words, research has proven that those programs work, of life skills in schools. So those are the things perhaps for our generation, it will be difficult to change mindsets that are already, but it's not too late. We can look at the young generation, children at schools, in churches, and try and speak a different language of problem solving.
And maybe just to add on that, to provide spaces where people can go willingly. Can you believe
Yes.
that time is running out?
And
So
it
we're
flies.
gonna need to wrap up. We're gonna need to wrap up. So maybe Kuobas, from your side, just in closing, what is it that you think, like, because I know you work with couples, you work with communities, you work with families. So what is it that people can do to start somewhere to get rid of these? Because I think the biggest thing is the willingness to face the issues, the personal conflict. So how do we help people to open up to that? Because we can have all the programs, we can do everything that we need to do, we can have how intelligent they are. But if people are not willing to admit that they have problems, we are not going to be able to. So from what you do, what are the things that you could advise people to say, maybe as couples, this is what you do for couples, this is what you do for families? And then we'll come to Esther to close on her part.
Yes. Well, I would say I really believe if you change the couple, you change society. Because if you change the couple, you change the way children look at reality, how they connect, how they repair. So, what I will suggest, if couples can learn the art of holding, well, to learn the art to love, learn the art to be in a relationship, and that's not just romantic. That is to learn the art to hold two different realities in dialogue. Learn the art of connection and learn the art of repair in such a way that our children can watch us and learn from us, and in such a way that we influence the next couple and the next couple and the next couple, that our children can influence the next friend and the next friend. So there's many services that we have available, like sessions and workshops and family sessions. How you know that you need that is when, well, in a way, I think you don't need to have trouble to learn the art of love. It's for everyone. But if there's ongoing conflict and you can't repair conflict, you know you need to learn the skills. There's no reason to keep on suffering. There's no way to continue with the war in our homes and with that escalated to society. If there's discomfort, come and learn the skills. It's available. There's wonderful tools to overcome this. Sorry, to overcome this and to overcome the war.
I
Or
I
my dog needs to
actually
go
I
for a
actually
workshop.
wanted I actually wanted you to touch on dialogue. So your dog is showing you that there should be dialogue within the couple, between the couple,
Yes,
because
yes. They need to
most of the
learn to
problems are
dialogue.
also
Yes,
dialogue.
yes.
Please say just 2 seconds about dialogue, the importance of dialogue.
Dialogue is your capacity to become quiet and to hear the other. And when you speak, that you speak because I've really got you. I really get your world. I'm not just reacting to you, but I'm being influenced by your reality, by your difference, by your uniqueness. So when I speak, I can speak from that place. And in essence, dialogue is not two people talking together because that's two monologues. That's what most people think about dialogue is. Everyone is talking. Dialogue is the capacity to be quiet and to listen. One is talking, one is listening, and you, especially you speaking equal. You don't listen to be right, and you don't speak to make the other one wrong. You speak to meet each other, to connect with each other, and for that you need a structured process to learn to dialogue, and we teach couples that. Because dialogue need to be safe. If dialogue is to put me one down or to tell me what's wrong with me or to judge me, there's no sense in that dialogue. But if dialogue is a process to restore safety, become conscious, restore connection, repairing, about growth, then dialogue is creative and valuable. And we teach couples how to do that.
Awesome. And you do group couples as groups, couples as private couples. So you do those sessions.
Yes, yes. If you are in serious trouble, we have intensives. If you need information and tools, we have workshops. If you need sessions and therapy, we have that. Affairs, violence, addictions, conflict, threatening of divorce. It's never too late.
Beautiful. We will channel them to you. We will definitely channel them to you. And Esther, just in closing, before you say something, somebody said, but what if the children, remember we're speaking about children touching the stove, what if they don't want to stop to touch the hot stove? What do you do? So that also happens with couples, with people, when they know that something is gonna impact them negatively, they continue. So what do you do?
You know, Matilem, what I didn't say earlier is that when somebody continues a behavior that is unacceptable, it means there's probably something underlying that is deep. And it means you need to either refer them to Gobas or a psychologist or a social worker to try and understand where that behavior comes from. It might be deep rooted. So I like that question. It doesn't have a simple, straightforward answer, but I understand that it does happen where you try and stop a child, because sometimes they may behave that way because they're trying to communicate something to you, to say, I'm not okay. So it means you need
Yeah.
probably somebody that is better skilled to try and explore and understand why
So
the
when you learn
child.
the dialogue.
Absolutely. But coming back to your question about where to from here. I'm loving what I see, the questions on the screen. I think we need to continue this conversation. I'm loving it, and thanks for creating this
Yes.
platform. I would like to take it further. There's so much to talk about that is interesting. But I think we need to encourage, and this is what we also encourage in government, what we call intergenerational dialogue, so that parents of our generation can try and pass on some kind of wisdom on how to sometimes deal and handle these things. It's not all old fashioned. There's a lot of wisdom that we can learn from older generation. But I think there's a challenge for parents of our age to also understand young people and the language they speak and what bothers them. And that's why I like this platform, and I would like us to continue this conversation. Very
Thank
interesting.
you. Yes,
Thank you.
and we've exceeded our time. I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you so much. This has been very profound, and I'm hoping that through this conversation, we can have people that can use some of what you have said to really change their lives and to change those the lives of those around them. And I'd really like to, and I can see that we could have had this conversation for a few more hours to come. So maybe what I can also suggest is we can look into taking this private, either on a webinar or on some kind of a workshop where we can have people that are experiencing, that I can see that there's violence in their families, in their relationships, and we find some tools to see if we can help. And then, but also look at having a workshop. I know Kuobas holds workshops, so we can also help to sort of send people through towards Kuobas where they can start to understand their partners. And I liked what Kuoba said, that the young children will start to look at what parents do. So if parents behave in a certain way, that is a way to rebuild the society, because now the child will see, oh, this is how you do things. This is how you love the other person. This is how you treat the other person. And they grow up knowing, because right now the violence is because they see that my mother, my father, this is how they behave, and this is how it's acceptable. This is how I can also behave when I'm outside at school or in the workplace. So I really hope that we can take this forward. We can have some more conversations, but I can see that we definitely need big workshops, many workshops to work on this and to see how we can also contribute towards changing our society. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much. I really
Thank you
appreciate
much,
your
Lee.
presence tonight. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, and thank you to everyone that has been watching, that has commented, and I really hope that this can help you and help your friends and your family. Goodbye, everyone.
Matsileng, it would be
Goodbye.
important to get feedback on what people